In my office, I have an hourglass. Every day, the first thing I do is turn over the hourglass. I grew up in San Jose, California. I started school really early. So I was 4 years old in kindergarten. I was 16 my senior year of high school.
Richard was very analytical, very focused. In school, he won awards.
So when I started college, I was 17. And so when I got to college, had some freedom, I didn't study very well. I was on the probation list my first year and a half of college. My grandfather got sick of cancer the start of my junior year. He was like a second father to me. I made the difficult decision to go back home to California to be with him for his last few months. Seeing him struggle really helped me to put his pain in the perspective of how short I was falling. And so when I went back to college, I actually wrote his name on the top right of every homework assignment and every test that I took. To honor his memory, I did so much better. I made the dean's list, I moved up, and had it not been for that circumstance, I don't think I'd be sitting where I am today. Ended up working as a basketball coach. And then one day, the superintendent of the school, who was my mentor, said, "Hey, now we want you to be a high school counselor helping kids get into college." And I'm like, what? All this preparing students for college is a new thing for me. But I learned and visited 16 different colleges in 8 days. Met with the mission people, studied like heck because I had to turn my knowledge around within 2 weeks to help juniors and seniors plan. My mom was the assistant superintendent where I worked in California.
I was seriously considering an offer to come and serve as president of Minnehaha Academy. And Richard he wasn't convinced that that was a direction that I should go.
All I knew was it was terribly freezing and the Vikings were decent occasionally.
When they flew out my husband and me to have the interview, Richard said, "Can I go?" As if he were flying there to participate so that he could give me his blessing.
And of course, they interviewed you and recruited you in the warmest time of the year. And so when I saw the place, I said, "Mom, you'd be crazy not to come here." The next year, there was an annual counselor conference at the Minneapolis Convention Center. Came and visited Minnehaha after the conference. Met with one of the principals here, and she goes, "The advisor who was here for 40 years just retired. Are you interested?" So I walked around, sat, journaled, prayed, and it was very clear it was the right call.
This is so not Richard. Never would make that kind of a hasty decision.
But had I not taken the leap of faith, wouldn't have the wife that I have, wouldn't have the kids that I have. I made the right decision.
Even now, my kids thought he was the best counselor they'd ever had, and he made a deep impact. His thumbprint is still there at Minnehaha.
So I transitioned from Minnehaha Academy to US Bank, where I led the college recruiting team. Sitting in my office, my boss tells me to pick up my phone because he was tired of it ringing. So I picked up the phone and my wife in a hushed voice said, "Hey, Richard, there's been a massive explosion at your mom's school. No one can find her. We don't know how to reach her. We don't know what's going on." So we actually looked out from the 18th floor and I saw the plumes of smoke.
Everything collapsed around us. All of the walls fell in. I was thrown out of my shoes. And later the forensic engineer said, had I taken one more step, I would not be here because the epicenter of the explosion was right under my office.
I remember being in the room when someone else came in and told her that we had lost 2 team members. And I knew Ruth and John very, very well from my time at Minnehaha. So she was bloodied on the hospital gurney. I'm thinking, there's no way in the world that the condition you're in right now that you should be doing anything but laying in bed for the next month. And she's like, "No, we are going to do a prayer vigil." When you talk about what leadership means, what caring for your community means, that was it that day.
Together we rise. That was our rallying cry. We trusted that God would take the tragedy and do some new things for us.
The day after the explosion, I sent a letter to the community to say that we were going to start school the day after Labor Day. At that juncture, I had no idea where we were going to be.
Now, granted, I was at US Bank still, but I was very invested in helping do whatever I could. So the weekend after the explosion, we were driving to different spots within the Twin Cities to see where could Minnehaha set up for a year or two.
They were going to need some pretty Herculean efforts in order to not interrupt their school year. We just had people and services we could bring to the table and really help them.
Mortenson was provided the opportunity to help the school go from explosion to new site in about 31 days.
I didn't know Mortenson at that point in time, and so that was my first introduction, walking through the job site, just getting to see the people, how quickly they were moving, how much care they took on the project site.
After we got the temporary school in place, we spent 2 years designing and building Minnehaha Academy's upper school.
But Mortenson came in with such empathy. We felt the care from the entire team. That was just so meaningful for us as a team to know that there was that much care.
I saw Mortenson firsthand. I saw all the wonderful things that were done. I wasn't looking for another opportunity, but we went back and forth and determined that my unique skill set met what Mortenson was wanting and needing. I lead the college recruiting and student programs team.
I've never been more excited to be a part of any organization since I left college.
But it would not have come had it not been for what Mortenson team members showed my family in the time of greatest need.
In my office, I have an hourglass. Every day, the first thing I do is turn over the hourglass as a reminder of how short our time is, how precious our time is. We have highs, we have lows, we have things at work that challenge us every single day. And when I think about how I've been blessed, I don't know of a luckier person than me.